All right, Mr. Eddie,
Justin,
how we doing, man?
we're great. We're great. It's good to be hanging out.
Good to see you. So you were an NCAA Division I rower for a time.
I was.
How has that drive and ambition you built while you were still competing helped you in the world of business and content creation?
Yeah, I mean, so everyone sort of has, these experiences that shape life afterwards, right? And for me, like, that's one of them. Like, when I look at college, a lot of people discuss whether, it's a necessary thing and for the cost and all, and you can debate that depending on what you want to do. But when I look back at my collegiate career, because of rowing, it's invaluable.
Right.
I joke around that I thought I knew what hard work was, but I had no idea. And so it was a walk-on. I played soccer in high school and basically just, I love the brotherhood and I love working hard, being in shape. I love the team environment. And I was in the student center and saw this sort of sign that said walk-ons, welcome for rowing. No idea what it was, but I went up there and learned right away that it was essentially just suffer. It's like, who can out-suffer, And to me, the $1 million story is like being on that rowing machine. And we do these, these timed pieces and just suffering. And I'd never been through something like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're playing soccer, you have to be fit, and I'm a distance runner, and like, there's that piece. But then there's like D1 rowing. It's just a different animal. And I'm on this machine, and I'm just pulling my heart out, and thinking I could be down at the dorm with my buddies having beers. Like, I don't need to be here, feeling all kinds of sorry for myself. Right. And the coach just walks up, and he's like, "You need to be faster." And I'm like, what? I'm in a world of hurt, right? And then he moves on, kind of going down the row, talking to the other teammates on the rowing machines. Comes back. He's like, look, I don't know how you get there or I don't care how you do it, but you need to be faster, because the guy at Georgetown and Wisconsin and Harvard and Yale, they're suffering too, but they're going faster. And that was the moment where it's like, oh, you can suffer and it not be enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so like that epiphany, especially in the world of entrepreneurship, it's like the world owes you nothing. You can spend 5 years on a project, and if it doesn't add value in the marketplace, no one gives a shit. And that's just not the world I was brought up in. And so much of who I am today and, my success in the business world and the people that I surround myself with, it all stemmed from that. It's like, life is a storm and you have to navigate it. It's not a referendum against you. It's just life. Be better.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people miss that. And so I feel very fortunate that that's when I was able to pick that up.
That's a really interesting sort of takeaway, that sometimes the suffering and the hard work just isn't enough. You still have to do more, even though you're like, I'm at 110% here. I have no idea how I could even load more onto my plate. That's really interesting, man. So how did that kind of translate into your business or content creation career? Did you ever have a point where it was like the same thing? You're on those rowing machines and your coach comes over. I guess it would be a proverbial coach in this case, and he goes, "Dude, you got to suffer more. Like this isn't enough." Did you ever have that in business?
Yeah, over and over again. I mean, where I got today was very much, or where I am today is very much a process, right? Of like, a lot of times not knowing what I want, but knowing what I don't. So it's like chopping away the stuff that's not making me happy and moving towards the things that light me up, because that's where you're at your best. That's where you're lit up. That's where you're adding value to the world. And so for me, like, it started with, a lot of it revolved around music, in writing my own stuff, playing shows around Boston, producing other artists. I was creative writing. I was taking the video camera out and making short films. Like, I just wanted to tackle what I felt like were life narratives through art. And so that's what I started doing. And in one of the first albums, and this is where I'm getting to answer your question here, is, I've made this like 7-album CD where I just basically taught myself how to record, engineer, roughly mix and master music. Right. You know what I mean?
That's
and so
badass,
wrote these songs, recorded it. And when you spend 5 months doing something from 6 in the morning to whatever, 10 at night, you expect some validation or some type of like, and so I got these CDs made and I passed them out to every bar in Boston and, clubs, and sent them to everybody, and no one cared. And at the time it was like, what? Like, how can this be? Right. It's just, and you realize now, like, it's a first step of many. No one wins a Grammy off their first album. That's just not how life works.
Exactly.
And it's the same idea. It's like, just because you're suffering or you're exhausting energy does not mean you're going to get some medal. It's like, one stair on a staircase. And once I learned that, that's exactly what it was. It would just continue to write and evolve and create and do things until, I found that proverbial intersection of what I love and what adds value to the world. But, that CD, I still have some. And my grandmother gave out like 10 to her neighbor, her neighbors. And but it means so much to me because it was such a life lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you said I didn't really know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want, and kind of moving all the stuff that I didn't want away was left the thing that I did want. Like if you break down the word decision to Latin prefixes, decision means to cut away, incision means to cut into, decision means to cut away. And if you decide something, you cut away all other possibilities, and you're left with this thing. That's really interesting. Yeah. So creative writing, making music, making short films. How did all of this lead up to your podcast career?
That continuous evolution. So to your point about, cutting away, the etymology of the word to cut, it's like, I almost feel it's almost a cliche, but J.R.R. Tolkien's "Not all who wander are lost," right? It's like, to me, the most beautiful thing, because I look back at that year of chaos, right? Leaving the corporate world and not really knowing what life would be, the most important year of my life, because I stepped out of this paradigm and I'm like, just go live and try things and explore. And like, there's not going to be a one-to-one payment. Like, you're not going to be validated for what you're doing.
Right.
And that's okay. Do it anyway. It was very hard for me to give myself permission to do that. And I know, firsthand through communication and just it's common knowledge. Like, people don't give themselves permission to do that,
right,
to explore and try things. So when I talk about, knowing what you don't want, that's critical, because it's like, I'm here, but here's wrong. So then who cares? There's nowhere to go but up. Right? Like, try, explore, test the waters, move. That's what life is about. And when you're in motion, like, everything's reversible. Like, if you take a step and it's like, whoa, this is wrong too. Okay, adjust course.
Yep.
That's the game of life. And, something that I learned, the only way to lose is to stand still. And it's, if you look at the sort of trajectory of the content that I create, it was acoustic, singer-songwriter stuff, to, writing speeches about that journey and producing like cinematic music behind it, which allowed me to, sort of get that creative piece out, right?
Yeah.
So I'd write the music, record the speech over it, and then fell in love with the storytelling component.
Yep.
To the point where I'm like, I don't need to be spending 3 days composing music. Like, let's outsource this and let's become an amazing storyteller. And it's just this evolution of like, this feels right in my soul. Like, I want this, and getting up excites me, and being the 1% at this, even if it's a long journey, and it's a journey I'm still after, like, I want to be the 1% at what I do. Like, let's go. That's right. That's green light, And so it's okay to not know where you want to go, but to know that what you're doing is wrong. Oftentimes that's like the launch pad.
Yeah, man. It's like it's trial and error. No one really knows what they're doing until something works out. And then they're like, let's do more of this and less of everything else, right?
Yeah.
My dad told me when I was 17, and so this was a few years ago. I got a job offer to move to Richmond, Virginia, to sell basically bug extermination door to door. And a few of my buddies were doing it at the time. And I was like, dude, I think I might actually really do this. And he said, you're so young that you can't make a mistake, really. Like, the only way that you could possibly make a mistake is if you get like physically maimed, if you lose some sort of like mobility or something like this. But it's almost every single experience you have will educate your future experiences. You know what I mean? It's like it adds to the character development of who you are and who you will be, right?
I was talking to my friend AD about that not that long ago. It's like even the places you look at where you're like, okay, this is not me, right? This is a stop along the way. Like in the corporate world, for example, I learned some interpersonal things that are, monumental for everything that came out. Like, you never know the value where you are. And so, everything plays a part.
Yeah.
You can't mess up by trying things and experiencing things.
Exactly. And it's looking back, you can kind of go, you can put the pieces together a lot more clearly than, looking forward. Because if you were in insurance, right? You were in the insurance industry?
I was, yeah.
So I assume when you're in that field, You're not thinking, well, in 5 years, I'm going to take this skill and this quip that I learned and put them all together and make a super successful motivational podcast, right? You're kind of just like, you're too in the weeds to pick your head up and go, oh shit, wait, I'm actually learning a lot of super valuable skills that are going to help me and inform my journey later down the road, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd do you one further. The only thing on my brain was like, I hope I'm not messing up. I'm not even thinking about upside or what this will become, or it's like, I hope this is okay.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, you know, the point where you look around and go, wait a minute, I don't have to accept this, or, you know, I can change this, or I can live like, you know, it's a big mental shift. And you talk about, you know, again, that theme of like self-permission. It's like, we don't green light our own growth because we feel like we don't want to rock the proverbial boat, you know, and that's what it was, 100%. It's like good grades, to get to a good school, to get a good job, start climbing that corporate ladder, to not screw up. What kind of life is that where you're not even asking yourself, what do I want and how do I get there?
Yeah, exactly. What was like if you have a specific moment, what was the specific moment where you're maybe driving to work or you're working at your job and you went, one, this isn't me, and two, I can change this. I have the power to completely change my reality. Was there ever a moment like that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny too. I would carpool with one of my good friends, and at the time, like, we would just suffer through the weekends and through the week, and then get hammered on weekend. Like, you know, that sort of like routine.
Yeah.
And you know, it was a Monday morning driving to work, and we're both just joking around about how incredible it would be to have a flat tire going down 95. And it's like, what are we doing? You know, like, this is, if you're going somewhere every day, and while you're en route, praying that you get into a car wreck, like, change things.
Yeah,
you know? And
exactly.
so, like, that was kind of like the sign that, you know, but 10 years removed, it's laughable. And it's like, then change. Right? But when you're in it, it's not small.
Yeah.
When you're in it, it just feels like the world's collapsing in, and everything you've worked for is wrong, and you're letting yourself down, your family down, the people that loved you down. Your ego hurts. All your friends have everything figured out, right? You're not. So, like, it is momentous as it's happening. And that's why I think hearing from people that it's like, hey, I know you feel like the walls are caving in. That's how it's supposed to feel. You're bigger than that. Move through it, you know?
Yeah, there's like a massive sense of reassurance where you're, you know, explaining to someone how you feel or something like this, and they're maybe a little bit further ahead of you in whatever career path you're in. And you're like, yeah, exactly like you said, the walls are caving in. It feels like I'm not motivated. I'm not doing enough. And they go, yeah, that's what it feels like. That's exactly what it's supposed to feel.
Yeah.
Change or do better. Or both. You know what I mean? It's really interesting. So
there's the practical piece. There's the ego. I mean, and I feel like people don't talk about that a lot. Like, they'll talk about the logistical, like, here's what you need to do. But, like, there's pride. You know, one of my favorite stories is being in Boston, and you can't make this up. Like, at the time I was with, like, two friends. One of them was working for a senator, and the other one was at Goldman Sachs. Like, they're not clowns, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd left my job and, like, in pursuit of what will be a YouTube channel. And we're talking to these girls at the bar, and, you know, I'm just like, I know it's coming, right? Well, what do you do? And I'm like, don't ask that question. Don't ask that question.
Right.
And it comes, and I'm just like, yeah, well, I got an idea for a YouTube channel. And just the look of like, oh, in her face, you know? And I'm like, those little things like that are what make it hard. And they're par for the course. And of course, they're not a reason to not pursue what you want to pursue, but you have to understand it's the cost of admission. Yeah. You know, it's okay. It's all right. A lot of people don't put themselves through that. And so a lot of people stay right where they are, and you get to choose.
Exactly.
You know,
would you say that if someone watching this is in that similar situation to you were, they feel like the walls are caving in, they feel like there's really nowhere to go except for to continue down this track, do you think that a good sort of step in the right direction for them would be to get clear on what they actually want, regardless of what they're doing or how they're doing it? Just like, let's think about this. Let's take out a piece of paper. Let's jot down all of the things that I would like to have in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Yeah. And then just move towards that.
I do think clarity is like the coveted North Star. I mean, the challenge is if everyone had clarity right out of the gate, everyone would have, you know, life would be smooth sailing. Like, you have to really work and chip away at clarity. And that's why, you know, to revert right back to what we were talking about, that's why it's okay that you don't know where you're going. You're not happy where you are. So go. And through momentum, you create clarity.
Yeah.
You find yourself in situations where you start collecting data. It's like, this was great, didn't like this, didn't like this, didn't like this. This intrigues me. We're going to do more of this. And in going, you sort of create your own reality.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best way to put it. And so I do think clarity is critical, and it, you know, people follow through on who they believe themselves to be, and that alignment is beautiful. I just think it's worth stating that clarity isn't dropped at your doorstep by a stork.
Right.
You got to go fight for it.
Yeah. You got to go out there, and again, it's that trial and error sort of yes or no. Do I like this or not? And eventually, if you get yourself into enough sort of situations where you kind of get your feet under you per se, and you know, well, I like these few things, and I really don't like these things. Let's do more of this and less of this. It gives you clarity, or at least the precursor of clarity, right?
Yeah.
So when you were starting your YouTube channel, obviously the first ball you hit is never a home run, excuse me. And there's a lot of people that have started YouTube channels, and they just work and work and work and work and work, like we were talking about, hard work and suffering, and it never really shows up with results. Was there ever a moment when you started that YouTube channel and you were just like, I don't think this is for me, this isn't working the way I thought it would, or something like this?
There was mental duress for sure, but I think it goes to, like, not that far in, I decided, like, this is what I'm doing. And so I'm either going to be ineffective and broke doing this, or I'm going to help a lot of people and be successful doing this. But, like, I'm doing this for sure.
Yeah.
And when you close that door, there's a lot of momentum that propels you forward. You
100%.
know, like, I remember when I moved, particularly from Boston to Florida, and I just got out of a relationship with an ex-girlfriend and just restarting, and was like an emotionally vulnerable time. And I don't even remember the video, but like I put some time into this thing, and it hit me, connected with me, and I'm like, this is a game changer. This is gonna help so many people. This is a work of art, and I put it out, and just crickets. Like, you know, the content game, like, some things just swing and miss.
Exactly.
And for some reason, I'm like, this is brutal. Yep. I just want to win at this game, and, like, you know, but I see that as a low point, you know, and it was like a short period of depression, like, what have you done? But I think because I had years of sort of reps reinforcing it, like, I just got myself together, and I continued to tell stories about what I thought were important and continue to upload, and I stuck with it. And, you know, year seven, right? I got that exponential growth that I've been waiting for and working towards. And it's like, if there was an off-ramp at any point along the way, I would have taken it. 100%. Because, like, you know, the mental suffering can be a lot when you're trying to build something. Yeah. So, yeah, I look at that point as, like, a low, but, like, super validating.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's interesting that you said when you sort of closed that door and didn't allow yourself any off ramps, that was a big propeller for you, or a big propulsion for you. My mentor says that commitment doesn't come from passion. Passion comes from commitment. As soon as you close all the doors, you burn all the bridges, you go, well, this is it. I have to do this, and you kind of build a passion on top of that. I assume, just by watching hours of your content, you are super passionate about what you do. Was that from day one, or did you kind of have to build that piece by piece?
It tied together some things that I was passionate about, right? And then when you find your lane, find that clarity, quote unquote, it's like, then it becomes, all right, how do we push this ball up the hill, right? And then that becomes, like, the thing in and of itself that lights you up. It's like the challenge and the excitement of, you know, doing that thing. Yeah.
I really like this quote from Alex Ramosi. He says, hard work works on you more than you work on it. And when you're doing something, especially in the content game, it's like you could put in a massive number of reps and not really see that validation on the other side. But if the goal is hard work, you win every time. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's really interesting.
I love that quote. I mean, it
great.
toughens you up. You know, you depersonalize sort of the ups and downs of life. You remove perfection as this sort of gatekeeper. You become the type of person that, you gain that confidence where it's like you handle yourself in rooms differently year 7 than year 1.
100%.
And this is all because you chose to embark upon this journey.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, that's a wonderful way of putting it. Jim Rohn says something similar where it's like, it's not the destination until you become along the way.
Yes.
It's
Absolutely.
100%. It sharpens you.
Yeah. Something similar to that. I was chatting with Evan Carmichael a few months ago.
I know that guy.
And he said, yeah, he's a killer, bro. I love that guy. And he said, a lot of people ask me, is it the destination or the journey? And he said something that I've never heard before. He was like, it's not the destination or the journey, it's the company you keep along the way. That for me is what matters. And I was like, oh, so people are focusing on the wrong thing, or maybe not the wrong thing, but they could be focusing on the company they keep. Because if you're working towards this amazing goal and the journey's been awesome, but you surround yourself with maybe people that aren't aligned with you, or maybe people that are actively saying, oh, well, you're never gonna make it, man.
Yeah.
That can be nothing but detrimental. And for some people, it's like, oh, I'm gonna prove him wrong or whatever. But it's much more powerful to have a bunch of people around you that are super supportive, and not just because they want their friend to be successful so that they can say, I have a successful friend. They really care about your success for you. Did you have a support system like that, or was it lone wolf the entire way?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say, like, yeah, you can have the wrong company, but you can also have not enough, around you to, we're social beings. And so I can say for sure that I've been guilty of sort of removing myself from a lot of the world. And it's like, that's great, but I need to focus on this, right? And you don't realize that being around people that light you up, that inspire you, that are like-minded, it lights this flame that translates to everything you do.
Absolutely.
And so if you disregard that, you're operating, half your potential. So one of the reasons I moved from South Florida last year, which is a place that one of the best places I've ever lived. I mean, I absolutely, minus the hurricanes that come towards the, that's a little anxiety inducing, but
absolutely
loved it, right? But I was coming here for work, once a quarter. And I'm like, the community in Scottsdale is like nothing I've ever seen. And just even shake some hands, go back to Florida, and just be in communication with these people. I'm like, I love those folks. And so ultimately, I'm like, I just want to be a part of it. And that was a big reason for my move. I'm like, I've been focusing for almost a decade now on just building brand. Now let's surround yourself with people that light you up, and it's critical.
Yeah.
You learn as you go.
Absolutely, man. It's that trial and error piece again. So a lot of people tend to, and of course you know this, just given your sort of position with your podcast, a lot of people chase motivation, but for, I would say, most people, motivation tends to fade quite quickly.
Yeah.
How, in your opinion, how do people sort of transform motivation into consistent long-term action? Is there like a sort of standard operating procedure for this?
I don't think anything is cookie cutter, So motivation, it's a word that I have sort of a love-hate relationship with. I mean, it's a big enough bucket where I can say that things I write about fall under that.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about keywords and optimizing your stuff so that it reaches people, I use it. But it tends to have a lot of fluff, right? And sometimes it's not bad. Like sometimes I need to turn on a video that's like, Eddie, just get out of bed, like be better. And it's like, okay, thanks. But I think the things that truly transform you are stories that help you look at the world a little bit differently. And, maybe paint a picture with a little more depth.
Right.
And so, to me, that's what I try and do is, there are certain themes that have changed my life. One of them is, you're always one decision away from a totally different reality.
Yeah.
Always. And so just knowing that, the comfort and solace in that, passing that message along, right? And then, so that's one, is taking these things in, these big picture philosophical ideas that you can be more, and there is an ideal life and you can move to that.
Yep.
And then the next thing is a lot of what we're talking about, is surrounding yourself with people that are on your side, that help you create momentum, that lift you up. And it's taking action. It's understanding you don't need to hit a home run.
Exactly.
How many times have you been in that spot where it's like, what I want is so far away that I can't leap that gap. You don't need to. Right? It's just pick one or two things and do it consistently over time. So there's little things that start to transform the way you see yourself,
Yeah, we talk about the what we call the transformation equation a lot on the show, and it's vision. So whatever you want, plus your plan to get there, multiplied by your action, normally daily action, equals transformation or change or whatever it is. And you just talked about your vision and the action you take to get there, and the relationship between those two things is your plan. And sometimes there's corners that you can't see around, right? Especially if you have goals that are super far out or something like this. But when you first started, did you have a sort of plan in mind, or was it just, shoot from the hip, go where it goes?
So a lot of people, and you may be one of them, will disagree with this. But I've always been very bend but don't break with my strategy, because when you become rigid with the plan and life throws curveballs, which life loves to do.
Oh yeah.
It's when, people kind of throw their hands up and deviate, right? And so I like to have like a few pillars that I follow that are just easy to be consistent, easy to take action on, right? So it's like, if it's starting out one video a week, that's doable. And I'll show up for that, and I'll be that. And when I start putting my head on the pillow at night, it's like, I'm the guy that set this plan every week. I hit this, right? That's who I am. It's important to sort of build that up. And then it grows with time as you start, bringing team members along with you and understanding more and more what you want your North Star to be.
Yeah.
Because, you can know, hey, I love telling stories and it's helping people, and I'm gonna pour my heart into this. But I didn't know exactly where to point the compass. I didn't know exactly what that would become.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like having some benchmarks, being consistent and following through on those things. Now, obviously, as years go by, I've been doing this for a while, a little bit more refined. When my team and I have objectives, we're more deliberate with how we're gonna, bring that stuff out.
I do 100% agree with that, and I feel like, well, maybe not a lot, but some people in the personal development space would go, Eddie, that's ridiculous. You need a perfectly thought out roadmap and all of these things. But the most important word if you're planning anything is a dynamic plan, because like you said, life loves to throw curveballs at you, and if you don't sort of feed back what you've seen into that plan, it doesn't work. Mike Tyson says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Alexander the Great is like, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So you need to be able to sort of change your plan mid-flight, kind of, right? Was there a point in your YouTube journey, your podcast journey, or your business journey where you had to sort of shift or pivot like that mid-flight, or was it just like you said, those pillars that are always constant, and you just follow those and you go where the road takes you?
Yeah, always a game of adjustments.
Gotcha.
For sure. I mean, the some of it's algorithmic. Some of it's like to keep that inspiration lit, and almost, I could say pretty substantially, most of my energy goes to figuring out how do I stay inspired.
Yeah.
Which sounds selfish, but how am I going to help other people get where they're going and inspire other people to live their best lives? If I'm like, all right, well, this is kind of, time to write the speech. It's like, no, dude. And so you live in a meaningful way so that you can sort of pass that along.
Yeah, you put on your own oxygen mask first, right?
Exactly. And then adjustments as far as starting out. The YouTube content I created was 3 minutes long, and it very much followed the structure of a song, right? Where it's just maybe not a song, but you have slow and then a build up and then a crescendo at the end. And so people were streaming it on Spotify under the artist profile because it's 3.5 minute feel. And then YouTube moved from views to watch time, and it's if you feel that these messages are going to help people and you want to get them out to folks, you have to change, because if they're 3 minutes, they're going to lose 12 minutes. Now it's I put out 3-hour videos, and the watch time on them is insane. They average 110 minutes sometimes. So it's very much been an ability to adapt, kind of that balance, right? Playing to win so that you can reach people who need what you have, and also doing it in a way that keeps you excited and inspired.
Absolutely.
And lit up.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that some people may find the fact that you change or modify things to keep yourself inspired as selfish, and Ayn Rand calls this the virtue of selfishness. She thought that a human's only responsibility is to actualize the life that they want, and then they can kind of pour over into other people. You fill up your own cup so you can overflow into other people. That's really interesting, just because if if you didn't do that, you'd find, or not find, you would get to burnout in some scenario, and then you wouldn't be able to help as many people, right?
Yeah.
So selfishness leads to selflessness in that scenario.
Oh man, I couldn't agree more. I think when I heard that, it was Tolstoy. It's like everyone wants to change the world, no one thinks about changing themselves.
Right.
I think societally we are, like, a lot of us miss the mark, like trying to fix groups of people or overall patterns, and it's like if everyone improved their own lives in their own personal agency, imagine the profound impact that would have across the board.
Exactly.
Right? But it's just, it's a lot more challenging to sell that. It's a lot more difficult to say, take this and point it at you and ask, like, what's one little thing you could do to make your life better?
Right.
It's easier to project out and blame.
Yeah, absolutely.
That will always be the case.
It's I talk to my wife and my dad about this all the time. If you for example, my mom didn't love me enough, so I can't date girls because they won't love me enough because my mom never did. If you kind of give that blame away, you're also giving power and responsibility away. If you just say, well, I tend to not really open up in these scenarios, that takes your responsibility back, and then you can change it instead of giving the power over your dating life to your mom in this scenario or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when people sort of get super clear on their values and their beliefs. They find that there's a lot of them that hold them back or are limiting in some way. Did you have any sort of limiting beliefs or maybe values that compromised your journey along the way?
Sure. I mean, I will say, like, there is a duality to that. Like, so understanding that maybe you did, for using your example, have a terrible childhood, or things went wrong, or your father was abusive. Like, there's power in understanding that. And, like, life is not fair, and we don't all start at the same place.
Right.
But to truly empower yourself, doesn't matter what's gone on in your life, it's stepping up and being like, I'm the only one who can do something about it now, And you feel guilty saying this because there are people out there that are truly suffering. It's like, we have it pretty good.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely,
what I'm saying?
man.
But I think the best weapon you can give people is the idea that, hey, things can be better, but it starts with you acknowledging that.
Yep.
I certainly had some limiting belief. I mean, it took me a while to even want to get on camera because I really loved the art of what I did. I didn't necessarily want to be like front facing or like need the attention necessarily.
Yeah.
But then you hit this point where it's like, it's another crossroads. It's like, if you want to take this thing next level, people connect with people.
Yeah.
And so, like, are you going to step out and be that? And yeah, it meant enough to me that I'm going to, yes. But it was like, you're an introvert, you're this, you're this, you're that. It's like, no, you can be whatever the hell you want, just go do it.
Exactly.
So, like, little things like that along the way, or like, I'm a perfectionist is a big one, saying that. And then you learn, like, no, you're just scared. Like, you're having 20 people say, yeah, this is good, post it, because you're scared. And so, becoming the type of person who can say, no, this matters to me, boom, it's out into the world. Next. Big deal.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it, but in the moment it was. So, yeah, I've watched myself sort of overcome a lot of those limitations. Standing on stage, right? That's a big one that I forget. I remember one of them, it's just cringy, like the memory of this. I was at what was called the Future Leader Program. And so a lot of times we had to report to executive leadership. And I remember giving this presentation and, like, have you ever been talking in front of a group and you just feel the wheels coming off the wagon in real time?
Yep.
It's a bad feeling.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And I just remember being up there and just being like, oh my God. If you would have asked me when I stepped out of that room, if I would be speaking in front of audiences professionally, I would have said, you are high, but it's just a matter of, not only do I do it now, I crave it, but it's putting yourself in that position and giving yourself permission to be that.
You said something really interesting at the beginning there. It was the most powerful weapon that you can give someone is the idea that they can change who they are regardless of what they think. And I love this quote. I'm not sure who said this, but it was, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
I've seen that attributed to Will Smith.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's the original, but I couldn't agree more. I mean, you just get pushback sometimes for saying that because, like, again, there are people going through hell you can't even imagine, but it doesn't make it less true.
Exactly.
Anytime, you feel sorry for yourself or, societally, I think we're rapidly adjusting and correcting, but there was a big period of time where victimhood was currency. particularly on social media, right? It's
yeah.
like, who can get the most? Oh, it's okay, you're great, right? You don't realize, but you're making you're disempowering yourself. You're making your
Exactly.
life hell
Yep.
for a short-term pat on the back. And part of the message that like I wanted to really push through is you're outsourcing the greatest gift you have is your personal agency and your ability to say, this is the life I want and I'm going to get it. When you're looking around and going, oh, things are so terrible and it's because of him, her, and them, what's changing?
Exactly.
So I do think that really, really does matter. Like we are all powerful. We just don't give ourselves permission to step into that power.
I've seen this, especially with a lot of people in my generation. We struggle with the whole victimhood mentality thing, and it's a very freeing idea to look around and go, everything that was or has ever been created was created by no one smarter than myself. This laptop that's in front of me, this microphone that's in front of me, this table, these lights, these cameras, everything that we know was created by humans. And a lot of people tend to, take that for granted and just feel like, these skyscrapers have always been here.
Yeah.
It's like, no, dudes planned that and built it. They saw this vision in their mind of this, like, take the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, for example.
Yeah.
This, like, I think it's like almost 200 stories or something like this. Some dude saw that and was like, oh, I'm gonna build this thing. I'm gonna build the tallest building in the world. And it's like when, like you said, you take that power back, and it's super freeing just to, I guess, sort of imagine or realize that everything that we know was created by people, and you're a person too. You can create whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
In your lane, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure whoever the higher IQs than mine have done like some things that
Right.
but the point that I think is like incredible to understand is like, you're right. You walk down the street, we take for granted like cars, buildings, signs, technology. Like, no, this is life. This is how things are. No, everything here was once an empty space that someone said, you know what, we can fill that, and I can be the one to bring that to fruition. Like,
Exactly.
I think that's just a beautiful message.
Yeah.
And be that for whatever, is most meaningful to you. We're not dropped in this place that always was this way and always will be this way. Like, we're in a world built by courageous men and women. Be one of them.
Exactly.
I think that's a really meaningful message.
I was talking about this with our mutual friend Anakin, and I can't remember if it was me or her that said this, but it was a quote from Albert Einstein, which was, "Technology sufficiently advanced will be indistinguishable from magic." And I listened to that, and I remembered this sort of concept that I guess I didn't even come up with it. I just discovered it magically. And it was it's something that I call value cubes. If you're say you're an online business owner, you wake up in the morning and you check this magic box that we all know is an iPhone, and you get a bunch of notifications that says you helped X amount of people, and for that you have been rewarded with X amount of value cubes or whatever currency it is. And then you can click buttons on this box and have food delivered to you. You can have a TV delivered to you on Amazon, and sometimes it shows up the day of. If you went back 60 years ago and you said, yeah, no, I wake up and I check this magic box and I get paid and I click some buttons and then things show up at my door, people would go, that's magic. You're a magician guy. That's crazy. So taking all of these things that we have for granted is, especially in America, is such a glaring issue, because it's never been a better time to be alive. It's literal magic if you went back and talked to someone from even as recent as like the 80s. If you were like, yeah, no, I wake up and I press this thing and I have food at my house. It's like, what? What do you mean?
I know. I always feel like an old man when I'm like, I'm 37, Spotify. Like every song ever written is on an app.
Exactly.
Like, when I was a teenager, like, you go to a CD store to pick out your favorite band to get 12 songs that you can play. The idea, it's nuts. And it is such a historical anomaly that I do think that we don't understand what it is and what this little piece of history, like how incredible it is. I'll never forget, like, all the write-ups when, this is random, but like Putin invaded Ukraine, right? And people are like, how can this, like, this 2020, whatever, was it 2023, like, we have warlords and like, what the hell's going on? It's like, no. That's not the anomaly. You walking to Starbucks, not having to worry about a thing, is the anomaly.
Right.
That's the world that has existed since the beginning of time.
Exactly.
And I do think, like, you know, we just take it for granted because there's nothing to, you know, if you're not, I don't even want to say well read, but if you're just completely oblivious to history, you think this is the way it always was, and this
Yep.
peace and this stability and this luxury and this
Yes.
efficiency, and you press a button and, you know, what you need shows up, groceries at your door. Like, dude, this is very new.
It's wild.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I heard a quote that said, obviously a lot of people say history repeats itself. This quote says, history never repeats itself, because there's this example of a man walks into a river and he walks out a different man, and the river is different because it flows and nothing is ever the same. So this quote says, history never repeats itself, but it does often rhyme.
Yeah.
And what you just said is super interesting. We don't have enough to worry about, so we create our own problems. I heard Jordan Peterson say, if humans created and lived in utopia, the first thing they would do is fuck it up. And I was like, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Just because we have no idea. We stand on the giants. We stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us,
Yeah.
right? And like you said with the Russia-Ukraine example, the anomaly is not that these bad things are happening. The anomaly is that they're not happening everywhere.
Right.
Because when humans transformed from hunter-gatherers, the agricultural revolution, we had farms and like homesteads. That was the point where people would go, ooh, you have more than I do, and I can take it now, because we're not these nomadic tribes that are moving around. We have farmland and homes and things like this. That was sort of the creation of conquering and things like this. And it's for lack of a better word, magical that is not happening everywhere right now, right? Like
Yeah.
we have these super sophisticated relationships between groups of people that we know as countries, with these borders and all of these things. It's incredibly sophisticated and high level. And it's like, again, for lack of a better term, it's absolutely magical that anyone is okay. Going back, like, you know, just in America, going back to the 1930s, the Great Depression, there was a housing crisis, and then everybody was basically broke, starving, and out of their homes. That was less than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And no one, like you said, if you're not well versed in history per se, you don't really have that perspective to be grateful for the here and now, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. It was so weird being in England and walking into a pub that was like built in the 1500s. You just realize how new we are. But Will Durant writes these, basically, I'm not sure what the term is, but different books on different chapters of history. And he literally just goes from civilization to civilization to civilization. And the rise, the fall, the rise, the fall,
Yeah.
coexisting together, like what, you know, and you start to see patterns. And one of the things he said is countries, or I don't know if he used countries, but civilizations are born stoic and die Epicurean. So like the hard work and mindset and a lot of the mentality so crucial to the resurrection of the society
Right.
unravels when people become comfortable and start taking things for granted and living in luxury. You know, either internally they implode or they become so weak that, you know, the neighbor outside just comes in. And so
Yep.
like you start seeing these things and you can, yeah, it's like, that's when you look at where we are and you go, man, like we just have it so good.
Yep.
And we just luxury,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's that sort of like that quote that comes up so often. Hard times make hard men make soft times or easy times, and easy times make weak men make hard times, and it's this sort of flywheel that just keeps on going and going. And for people that don't know, the Stoics and the Epicureans were the two sort of schools of philosophy in ancient Greece, and the Stoics were like, hard work, hard mentality, all of these things, and the Epicureans were more just do whatever makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually a really interesting example, just because I feel like so many people just in the world in general are sort of veering towards that path of Epicureanism, I guess you could say. And there's this concept called I think it's called the hedonic treadmill or something like this. And it's basically like, if you only do things that make you feel good, you're running on this treadmill and you have to turn it up every time until it's going too fast for you to keep up, right? And or maybe that was just completely wrong, but that's what I've taken from this sort of concept, and it makes so much sense just because I have a phone in my pocket. I can look at anything that was ever written in history. I can look at any sort of invention. I can look at things that make me excited, happy, sad, depressed, nervous, anything at the click of a button, right? So it's a lot of power to have that. And I heard this quote. I think I'm not sure who said this, but it was your phone can take you to, or I guess it was technology in this example, but I'll say your phone. Your phone can take you to heaven or hell, but it cannot replace you as the driver. And I heard that and I was like, oh shit. So I sort of made it a practice, and I don't do this 100% of the time. I'm not perfect, but I really do try. When I take out my phone, I know exactly what I'm going to do on it. Because if I don't, I get taken down this rabbit hole of looking at Instagram and Twitter and all of these things. And before I know it, 3 hours of my life is gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what do you think is the sort of cure to just doom scrolling all day and only doing what makes you happy? Is it that sort of stoicism mentality where you seek out hard work and discomfort?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to be perfect at this, but like, I'm speaking as someone I would say my phone is my biggest adversary. It's like getting high on your own supply, right?
Exactly.
You're going into these apps to, work genuinely,
Yeah.
check data, check analytics. But the first thing that happens when you open them is an algorithm gives you,
Exactly what you want to see.
what you want most, you know? I think it was Sharma, Robin Sharma, said like you can be distracted or you can do incredible things, but you can't do both. And so much of the monster in the closet now, the adversary now is just not being where you are.
Absolutely.
And it is being lost in these things. So yeah, you do have to create parameters around your phone. Like for me, if I put the phone next to me and I turn it over and I start working, sometimes it's out of habit. I'm probably turning that thing over in 5 or 10 minutes. So
Right.
like when I know I have deep work to do and and I do every day, I write for sometimes hours, I have to take it and literally put it in a different room. And so it's understanding how you can best operate. There's an idea that you are your own experiment. Everyone's going to be different.
Yeah.
When I read The Power of Habit, he's like, the best way to not eat junk food, I think it was just Duhigg, the best way to not eat junk food or eat cookies is to not have them in your house.
Exactly.
Right? Otherwise, you're going to run out of discipline, and it's a matter of time. You'll reach in there and you'll grab one.
Yep.
So it's like putting, and Atomic Habits is the same thing. Like it helps you sort of establish parameters in your life that, put the lizard brain in check so that you build obstacles around the things you don't want to do, and
Absolutely.
you make it easier to do the things you need to do.
Yeah.
So I think a
100%.
lot of that's exploration and just understanding, how you work.
Yeah, I was just talking to my wife about this, and we're just riddled with distractions, and I love that quote. You can do extraordinary things or you can be distracted, but you cannot do both. There's this sort of example that I love to use, and it's when you get in your car and drive to the grocery store. I think there's a statistic that says at least in America, you get hit with like 30,000 marketing messages or something like this. And if you don't have a clear life vision and a clear decision-making framework, there's corporations and businesses that have billion-dollar marketing budgets, and all that means is that they want to change your decisions. A junk food company wants to break your diet. Take Instagram, for example. They want you to scroll on the app for hours and hours and hours. If you don't have a decision-making framework or a life vision, it's hard for you to sort of weigh your options, right? And if you go to a grocery store and you're hit in the face with these thousands and thousands and thousands of marketing messages, and you just don't really know where you're going, chances are they're going to sway your decision making, right?
Yeah.
How is it that some people are so clear cut, I know exactly where I'm going, and some people are just kind of letting life come at them instead of creating their own life? How is that disconnect even
like
existing?
finding that intentionality.
Exactly.
I mean, I can say like one of the things that's helped me when things seem, and I think you alluded to this, like when they seem complex or chaotic, you're not really clear. It's like, well, who can like put the Pop-Tarts in the cart? Like who, But when you can understand what you want and condense that to really simple steps, it makes it easier to say no to what's outside of that. So
Exactly.
a big thing for me has been, putting on weight. And I put on probably 15 pounds in the last 8 months, 10 months. And a big piece of that has been here are the macros. Here's what you're going to do to get that. Like, it's rice, it's chicken or steak or whatever. And so, and on Fridays, like, dabble, do your thing, you know? But that, to me, that clarity makes it very easy to say, oh, that's outside of the mission, right? It's just, I think a lot of people aren't able to obtain that and break it down into something that's simple and actionable.
Right.
So that would be my take.
It's really interesting that you said. Well, it's absolutely true. If you have a life vision, saying no to everything else becomes so simple because it's one question that you ask. You go, will this get me closer to my goals, or will it pull me further away? And if it's pull me further away, I'm saying no every single time. If I am making decisions in accordance with what I want, right?
And if you find yourself consistently, even with that clarity, moving outside of that and doing what you're not supposed to do, then you take a long walk and ask yourself, do I really want this goal?
Exactly.
Is there something big picture? Is it the right North Star? Like, you know, that's the heart to heart you have with you. But if you want it and you spell out the steps, it negates a lot of temptation to do other things.
100%. And what it really comes down to most of the time is your purpose. Is your why big enough for you to, you know, get rid of the junk food in your house, or start going to the gym, or start studying more, start working more? There's this story that I love about Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was the scariest dude in the heavyweight division. Nobody had ever beaten him, and he knocks out everybody in the first round. Terrifying guy. And Buster Douglas was set to fight him, and his mother was in the hospital on her deathbed. And one of the last things that she said to him was, promise me you're going to beat Mike Tyson. And he was like,
it's a big ask.
Exactly. And he said, I promise you, I'm going to beat Mike Tyson. He gets in the ring, and he was the first dude to knock out Mike Tyson because his why was bigger. It wasn't just, oh, I want this championship belt. And for Mike Tyson, it could have just been, well, I want to protect my championship or whatever it is. He had such a big why that his resolve was so large that he, you know, changed history. And for a lot of people, if they get clear on the why for their goal, that's all the motivation they need. Yeah. And they'll find the way, right? Joe Polish loves to say, winners find ways, right? And if you get super, super clear on your why, you will find a way if it is big enough, if it is strong enough, right?
Yeah. 100%. Find that what's meaningful to you. And like we talked about, because what I worry about from some of these conversations I have on a daily basis is people that say, look, I don't know what my why is. You know, that's okay. That doesn't mean you're broken.
Exactly.
Right? That's when we revert back to what we were previously talking about. It's like, go out and figure it out. Like, that's what life's for.
Yep.
But when you find it and you know, like, this is what's meaningful to me, then you break it down tangibly. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So just talking about purpose and vision here, what is your vision that drives you every day, and why do you wake up and chase it?
Yeah. So, I mean, my purpose is to help people understand that perspective can change your life. And I like to do that through art and through media because, one, I'm passionate about it. And so it transfers well, but I also think people aren't practical. We are emotional.
Yep.
And so, you know, if someone gave me a list, I mean, I've read personal development books that are like, you want to change your life? Here's a list of 72 things. I don't care, right? I'm not doing any of that. If you move somebody, if you meet them where they are and you make them feel it, they'll act, or they'll at least begin the process. And so that, to me, is what's truly exciting. And it's like mastering different ways to get people to see that in themselves. Yeah. You know, through media, through story, through all these things. It's empowerment.
Yeah, man. I was again going back to my conversation with Evan. He said, obviously we're a product of our environment, but we can change our environment, and that doesn't even mean moving house or changing where you live. You could just watch a video every day. You don't have a mentor, but you have YouTube. You can watch videos of Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, whoever it is that inspires you. Watch one video every day, and that is enough for you to change your actions, right?
Yeah. Have you heard the idea of little hinges?
Little hinges swing big doors?
It's one of my favorites.
Yes.
Because you find these things in your life that maybe it's a video, to your point, you know, it just gets you in the right mindset. Or for me, and it's always been this way, it's not small, it's monumental. If I get up at 5, I just feel like I'm beating the world. I feel empowered and excited and just good. And when I sleep until 7:30 or 8, which every once in a while I do, I wake up and it's just not the same.
Yeah.
And there's no way around that. And so, like, understand what those things are and use them to your advantage. You know, explore, try things, work out in the morning, work out at night, work out midday, find out like what's best for you, for your environment. Like, explore. There's no online personality that can give you the exact roadmap, you know.
Exactly.
But if you're willing to continually chip away at it, I think you'll be able to put together a map that works for you.
And that's something that's, especially in our industry, the personal development industry, that's something that gets lost on a lot of people that intake personal development content, because not everybody, I shouldn't say that, a chunk of the people inside of our industry offer a sort of miracle diet, magic pill, weight loss with no action. It's a result without action, right? It's a just automatic thing. You buy my course and you get rich, whatever. Why do you think the separation of cause and effect is so rampant and pervasive in the world, but especially personal development? And why do you think that is so sort of destructive?
Because I think people want results and they want to be led. And I think there's a lot of, I mean, let's be real, social media is, a lot of it's a facade, but it's what we consume. And in a way, like, you know, we talk about reality versus social media, but at what point is social media not reality? I mean, some people spend more time there than outside their phone every day, you know? So I think it's just wanting things immediately and forgetting that the best things in life take time. And it's like, I forget who we were talking about earlier, maybe it was Jordan Peterson, but the idea that like the things that will transform you and allow you to evolve require suffering. Yeah. Like the turbulence, the storm creates the clarity. And that's hard to sell.
Yep.
It's hard for me to be like, hey, eat shit for 10 years, you'll be a millionaire. No, it's like, here's a course, you know, and you're going to make money as soon as you hit play. Like, okay, that's an easier sell.
Yeah.
That's not to say there's not knowledge that can be passed along.
Exactly.
You know, I'd say like it took me 7 years before I got that hockey stick growth. If I had the right people around me, if I read different books, if I had the right answers sooner, could that have been? Maybe. But I am who I am because I endured that.
Yes.
You know, and I'm able to help other people through their hell that they're walking through or their current valley of despair because I endured that. And so to me, that's the message. It's just very hard to get that through in a way that's going to sell books or courses. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's again, I love Alex Hormozi. He's an absolute quote machine. He says, people give you support right when you don't need it anymore. And he told this story of, he used to be a gym owner, and he was sleeping on the floor of his gym because he didn't want to pay 2 rents. And there was a point where he was just so fucked, for lack of a better term, sleeping on the floor of his gym, waking up at 5 a.m, going to bed at like 2 or 3 because he had to do all of the bookkeeping, all the accounting for his entire business, and no one was there. And as soon as he, you know, starts to scale up his gym, he gets his own place and all this stuff, people go, oh, nice, man, you finally did it. And he's like, I could have used this 2 months ago, 3 months ago, or whatever. But something that helped him a lot was the idea of it will never be this hard again. It's only up from here, like you said.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's super comforting and reassuring for a lot of people that are in that valley of despair. It's like it can't get worse, so it can only get better.
Yeah. I like that. And I get the context and I agree. I would add, like, life is sort of cyclical, right? So, you know, you're on the floor and you're working and working and working and you make progress.
Yeah.
And what was the ceiling now becomes the floor. And now you have the next thing. And so there's always this, like, you know, there's always the next challenge or next hill to climb. It's not like the fear goes away.
Yeah.
It's not like life becomes easier. But you start, I think this is your point, like you start to create this track record of dragons you've slayed.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I've been on a floor. What can I not accomplish?
Yep.
Right. But, you know, because I've been on that floor, not even metaphorically. And it's like there are problems now that feel just as big, but they're not, you know, and you know, you solve them. But yeah, life does have sort of this cyclical nature. And it is funny. That was one of the things that, you know, going back 10 years ago, like, was so disappointing to me when you're most vulnerable, expecting people to have your back that just don't.
Exactly.
Like, it was so quiet that I'm like, come on, guys. Like, this hurts to be this vulnerable. Share something, say something, like the post, these trivial things that just are laughable.
Exactly.
They would have meant everything, right? And yeah, a decade later, it's cool now.
Yeah.
You know, and so, like, that's not a referendum on anybody. That's just the way life is. And so it's one of these things where it's like, buckle up. If you want it, like, understand there's going to be that turbulence. And that's just, you know, you got to put the quarter in to get the gumball out. That's cool.
For a very long time, and sometimes a super prolonged period of time, you're going to be the only person in the auditorium clapping for yourself. And it's going to be a very long, slow clap for maybe 5, 10 years, right? It's super interesting what you said about sort of gathering evidence, right? There's this quote that I love that's self-confidence or self-esteem doesn't come from shouting affirmations at a mirror. It comes from you having a massive mountain of evidence that you are who you say you are.
That sounds like Moseyism.
Yeah, I think it is. And dude, I love this guy. He's so great.
He is good.
And he's a quote machine, but it's absolutely true because it's like take a video game example. You have like a level 1 monster in front of you, but also you have a level 1 weapon. You're fighting a bear with a stick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, you get to level 20, you're fighting a dragon, but you have an army behind you. So it's not that the monsters get easier to sort of conquer. It's that you get better at conquering them. You are more equipped with the tools and the weapons to do so.
Yeah. And it's where my brain goes, like, I don't mean to be Switzerland, but I just feel like so much of life is this sort of gray space where you're right. Like, if your life is, you know, you have a 4-hour morning routine and you're in the mirror saying, I am amazing, I am good, and that's that, nothing's going to change.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, you know, the idea that, I can't even remember the term, but like, where you have a boat on your wall and you think looking at that's going to get you the boat.
Yeah.
No. But also, if these things are advantageous, do them. Like, don't let anybody laugh you out of doing what, like, if the boat on the wall reminds you you're the type of person that can get the boat and you go out with a little more fire in the morning to go kick ass.
Exactly.
Hang the boat up.
Yep.
Right? I think, like, we listen too much to just bullshit, and none of it means anything. All of it can be interpreted in any way. If while you're brushing your teeth saying, I am creative, I generate wealth, I help people, if that primes you and you know, you feel like the man, do it.
Yeah.
You know, do what's best for you. Empower yourself to do that. I think that's a really important message.
I 100% agree with you, and the biggest disconnect between what you just said and the sort of, I guess you could call it like the manifestation movement, or
That
the
was
people
the
that are
word
like,
that I was thinking, yes.
the law of attraction. I put a picture of a boat on my wall and I'm gonna get it. It's the separation between cause and effect. Again, it's like, yes, if you put a picture of a boat on your wall and it reminds you that you need to do the actions necessary, fucking do it. That's perfect. But if you think that, you know, shouting "I am rich" in the mirror 100 times is going to make checks show up in your mail, it's wrong. You have to do the actions necessary in order to get the result that you want, right? And like you said, if that pours gasoline on that fire, do it all day 100%, and don't let anybody laugh you out of doing what you want to do. But there's this sort of weird message right now, especially right now, where people go, well, all you have to do is believe and you'll get the thing. And it's like a super sort of fuzzy word, manifestation, because you ask anybody what it means and everyone has a different definition, but the dictionary definition of manifestation is to make visible. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of people are like, well, it's to create with your mind. Not really. You don't manifest a house. You don't make it visible. It was never like, you build it. You build a house. You do the actions necessary, or you pay the guys to build the house. You know what I mean?
And maybe that's like a better way to frame it. As simple as like, action is what makes the world go round.
Yep.
And anything you can do that's going to propel that action that's worth it, then do it. Yeah. But understand action.
Yes.
It's not the boat on the wall. It's what you're doing to be able to afford the boat.
Yeah. There you go, man. And that's such an important sort of lesson that a lot of people need to understand right now, just because, again, there's so many people kind of
hopefully not that many. In my brain, I'm like, please only be like 20 people that think you can magically make.
And going back to like the course thing, people are selling courses on how to manifest things, and it's like, you're manifesting your dream life by selling a course and making money. You're not manifesting your dream life by shouting affirmations in the mirror. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you want to teach people how to do what you do, actually teach them how to do what you do. Don't just give them the sort of fuzzy, nice rainbow and sunshine thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's the separation between cause and effect. At the end of the day, that is what it is. Because people, like we've been saying, if you put that picture of the boat on your wall and it propels you to do what you need to do, that's awesome. But that was not the cause. The cause was you did the actions necessary and now you get the thing.
Yeah.
Right? And of course that helped you do the actions necessary, but maybe it wasn't needed. Maybe it wasn't necessary to have that picture of the boat on your wall. Maybe you could just keep it in your brain or whatever. It's really interesting, and I could talk about this for hours for sure. But let me ask you this: who are some of the people that have inspired you most, and why?
I take my inspiration from a lot of different places. Like a lot of the time, it's my friends that'll say things that, I'll quote them and I'll be like, that's incredible. Like one of my friends, I'm running 100 miles next week in Florida with one of my buddies. He's an older guy, like late 60s, just had quadruple bypass surgery. He's a maniac. But like, and I'm giving you the highlights. There's a lot there. But like, I remember talking about someone that like wronged him, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of money. I'm like, you gonna go sue him? And he's like, Eddie, in his southern accent, he's like, if a snake bites you, you gonna run into the woods and try and stomp its head, or you gonna go to the hospital and get the help you need? And I'm just like, what? Like these little anecdotes. I'm like, that's brilliant. And so I'll take that and I'll write about that and share that with an audience that will, get a lot from it. So a lot of it's day-to-day stuff. Like musicians inspire me a lot. I think their storytelling and vulnerability, you take someone like John Mayer, who's one of my favorite artists. And one of the reasons I reference him is because I think he's like an under the radar Jimi Hendrix of our time, but also can write a killer pop song. Yep. And you take these two different worlds and you combine them. Anything that takes two different arenas and kind of merges them, I'm just awed by that. I think that's really cool. The bravery and courage of historical figures, the founding fathers, to me, I can study them for the rest of my life and I'll never be able to fully understand the courage and conviction with which they lived, especially compared to, many of us today. I'm like, how do I measure up to John Adams? Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's just so many things out there if your eyes are open and you're looking to pull and just inject into your life.
So my final question before we end here is, if you had a chance to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
That life's a game and it's not that serious. Like it took me a long time to understand that it's not black and white. It's not about not messing up. It's messy. And go just live, explore, experiment, find what you love, give it to the world. I think we create these boxes around ourselves and live within them. We think life is very rigid, and it's not. And I think there would have been a lot of comfort in telling 12-year-old Eddie that.
Right.
So it took me a long time to figure that one out.
I love that, man. Yeah. So just before we end, where can our audience learn more about your mission and what you do and kind of check you out and connect with you?
Yeah, hop along on the podcast. So it's Eddie Pinero on YouTube, on Spotify, Your World Within with Eddie Pinero, or Eddie Pinero on Instagram. I'm pretty good at, responding to DMs, say hello, say what's up. Happy to connect.
Nice, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Justin, thank you.
Woo!